motion in continuation only. It's third lecture. We want to talk about the rigid bodies, as we have discussed that if I am talking about most of the solid bodies can be taken as the rigid bodies. It means if I take this pen, this is a solid body, can be taken as a rigid body. And if I want to move this pen, I think you can see this pen. If I'm moving it in this direction, simply like along a line. From here I'm starting, I'm moving it along a line. Then all the particles are moving equal displacements in the same direction. That is the translational motion. If I make it move, this is simply a pen I'm saying, or any solid thin rod can be taken. Then all the, if I'm moving them along the line, then all the particles are getting shifted along the line. So this is one line, one thin rod with me, whose of course center of mass we have already calculated. Now I'm moving it along a line, then all the particles of this rod, they are moving along that line. So it means when I take single particle, then I talk about the linear motion. But if I'm taking the linear motion of a rigid body, then we call it as the translational motion. So two words we will be using very frequently. One is translational motion and another is rotational motion. Rotational motion is that if I move a body, like if you are taking a wheel, then the particles of that, if you are rotating a wheel, then all the particles of this wheel, they are rotating about a common line. That line I may call it as the axis of rotation. This can be taken as the axis of rotation. Axis of rotation. So it means this is motion we are taking of the disc. It can be taken as a disc with me, it can be taken as a ring. So if I'm taking the ring, then it is a particle. When I take a disc, you play with the flying disc. So when you fly it, what is, you are making all the particles to move. If you rotate it, because when you generally play, you give it a little rotation and then only you throw. So what you do, you are rotating the disc about a given axis. That axis we are calling it as the rotational motion. So when we are dealing in 3 dimensions, the linear motion is extended to the translational motion. Circular motion is extended to the rotational motion. This is one thing which should be clear of this. In 3 dimension when I deal, then I will be using these words with me. One is the translational motion and another is the rotational motion. So when I'm talking about the rotational motion of a rigid body, then the terms, it means whatever we have used in the circular motion. Circular motion is of course the motion about a given point, that is the center of the circle. And that center of the circle, I am making the body to rotate. Then whatever terms we have used, the similar terms or the same terms I can simply use, but the results will be extended to the 3 dimensions. It means like if I have taken this as a rigid body with me, rigid body can have a particular shape, like I am saying a disc is there, a sphere is there. We are talking about the motion of those bodies, like in real life you are able to see the wheel of a car or any vehicle. So when your wheel is rotating, that is rotating about a line. That line we are calling it as the axis of rotation. So here I may call this y dash as the axis of rotation. So y dash here can be taken as the axis of rotation. It is your choice. You want to move along which axis? You can move along x-axis, then accordingly you can draw the line. That line can be taken as the axis of rotation. So how to get this line? This line we are getting by joining all the centers of those circles which are rotating. So in parallel planes, of course, if this particle is rotating in the circular path like this, so it will be the circle of this particle. Then for this particle you draw the circle, this particle you draw the circle. So when you join the centers of all the circles, then you get a line, and that line is perpendicular to these parallel planes, and this line we are calling it as the axis of rotation. So axis of rotation is that line which we are getting by joining the centers of all the circles which are revolving in the parallel planes. And when we are rotating the body about a given axis of the rotation, then the angular speed which we are giving, that is termed as omega. So omega is the angular speed. Of course, we have already discussed about omega is a vector quantity. And if I want to see the relation of omega with v, that is a linear velocity, that you have already studied, that v it is equals to r omega, or I can say v it is equals to omega cross r. It means when now we are going to deal with this rotational motion in 3 dimensions, then the cross product should be clear with you. You can revise the cross product of the vectors again to just get into the thing, and because the direction is always given by the right hand thumb rule. So omega cross r, that will give you the direction of the linear velocity at any given instant of time. So similar to whatever we have done, the equations of linear motions for constant acceleration, now we are having the equations of rotational motion with us. So we are assuming the same body, like it's moving about the axis y dash, and initially when time is 0, we are assuming let the angular velocity omega, it is equals to omega naught, and the theta we are taking, that is equals to 0. It means we are starting like from the initial point when the theta is 0. Again, theta is the angular displacement, omega is the angular velocity. We are assuming that the body is rotating with constant angular acceleration, and we are calling this constant angular acceleration as alpha. So alpha is constant angular acceleration. At time t, when we observe, then we are saying angular velocity is omega and theta equals to theta. Now here, if you want to suppose omega t, theta t, that also can be written. So whichever way you feel convenient to write the things. And otherwise, if they give you equation, then if they name it by a specific term, then you have to write it accordingly. Derivations, of course, we have done with the calculus method only, because we know angular acceleration, that is given by rate of change of angular velocity. So alpha, it is equals to d omega by dt. So I can write d omega, it is equals to alpha dt. Now if I apply these limits, I integrate when time is 0 to t, then omega is changing from omega naught to omega. So integration, you know, so alpha is a constant, we have taken alpha is the constant angular acceleration. So alpha can be taken out. So integral of dt is t, limits 0 to t. So this you will be putting the limits, upper limit minus lower limit. So it will be getting alpha t minus 0. It means alpha t. So I can write omega minus omega naught, it is equals to alpha t. So you can write omega, it is equals to omega naught plus alpha t. So this is the first equation with you, but of course you know alpha is a vector quantity, omega, omega naught, all are vector quantities. So you can put the vector signs. Like for linear displacement x, we are talking about the angular displacement d theta. D theta is the small angular displacement in time dt, and then your angular velocity, it is given by rate of change of angular displacement. So omega can be written as d theta by dt. Again, you people know that theta is a vector quantity, omega is a vector quantity. So you need to take care while solving the numericals, all these things. Here omega we have calculated from the first equation, omega is equals to omega naught plus alpha t. So omega will depend upon at what time I am looking into the matter or looking into the motion of the body. So you have to put this value of omega here, that is equals to omega naught plus alpha t, and then you integrate within the limits. Those limits suppositions I have given you in the beginning. So you should be able to apply your suppositions. When time is changing from 0 to t, then theta is changing from 0 to theta. Angle is changing from 0 to theta. So when you put the values again, integral of d theta is theta, limits 0 to theta. Omega naught initial velocity at time t equals to 0 is constant, can be taken out. Integral of dt will be t, limits again 0 to t. Alpha is constant, can be taken out. Integral of t dt, it will be equals to t square by 2. So limits you have to put from 0 to t. So you will be getting on putting the limits. I am getting the equation theta equals to omega naught t plus half alpha t square. Here of course if you take initially angle is some theta naught, then you may write this equation as theta equals to theta naught plus omega naught t plus 1 by 2 alpha t square. So if they are asking you, then you should be able to make out that theta naught is the initial angle. That also you should be able to make out from the things if it is used somewhere. Equation, if I want to derive, of course here all these are the vector quantities. We have to go in detail of all these things. This is also vector. And alpha, third equation, if I want to derive, then I have to use the relation again. Angular acceleration, it is given by rate of change of angular velocity. Of course, this is your instantaneous acceleration if I go by the definition, and instantaneous angular acceleration. So alpha, it is given by d omega by dt. I can rewrite this equation as d omega by d theta into d theta by dt. So you can put the value d omega by d theta as it is. D theta by dt can be written as angular velocity, it means omega. So I will be collecting the terms of omega here, omega d omega on the right hand side. On the left hand side I am getting alpha d theta. Because you know whenever I have to want to take the integral, so small variable should be there. Then only I can take the integration, not otherwise. So alpha is constant, can be taken out. Integral of d theta, it can be written as theta. Limits I am taking from 0 to theta. And here omega d omega integral will be equals to omega square by 2. So limits are omega naught to omega. So initial angular velocity, because we have taken it as omega naught. So when you put the limits, you are getting the equation alpha theta, it is equals to 1 by 2 omega square minus omega naught square. So on rearranging, I am getting omega square minus omega naught square, it is equals to 2 alpha theta. So this is the third equation with you. So you should be able to derive these equations of course, and you should be able to use these equations in the numericals as well. One simple numerical is taken for you. I'm reading, but it is increased from 1200 RPM. RPM means revolutions per minute. It means though they are writing angular speed, but they are talking about revolutions per minute. So you should be knowing that frequency is revolutions per second. And omega, it is equals to 2 pi. This is your previous knowledge. So it means the angular speed is increasing from 1200 revolutions per minute to 3120 revolutions per minute in 16 seconds. Time is given 16 seconds. This is 16 seconds. Time is given to you 16 seconds. What is its angular acceleration, assuming the acceleration to be uniform? This is the first part. You have to find the angular acceleration. And second part says, does the engine make during this time? You have to find the number of revolutions also. So two things you have to find. One is the angular acceleration and second is the number of revolutions. So you have to better use those equations whichever we have worked. So frequency is given in per minute. So you have to divide the number of revolutions with 60 to get the revolutions per second, and then you multiply with 2 pi to get the omega. So omega naught, which is the initial angular speed, is to be taken in radian per second. So radian per second you will be taking it 2 pi into angular speed in revolutions per second. So this is given 1200. So you have to write 2 pi into 1200 divided by 60. Then you are able to get the omega naught, which is coming out to be 45 radian per second. You have to see, and otherwise from the units in the question you can decide whether they have given you the omega or they have given you the frequency, and then you need to work out accordingly. Final speed, if you want to find, that is 2 pi into 3120 divided by 60 radian per second. So when you put the values, you are getting 2 pi into 52, it means 104 pi radian per second. So omega naught and omega you have calculated. You know the first equation, that is omega, it is equals to omega naught plus alpha t. T is given, so you can find alpha very easily by simply using the first equation of motion. So the only thing is that you should be able to read the question and then decide whether omega is given or nu is given. So alpha I am getting omega minus omega naught divided by t, which is coming out to be, by putting the values of this, 104 minus 40. You can always put the values. Pi I am taking it as common, divided by 16. So if you put the value, you are getting it 4 pi radian per second divided by 16. Okay. So you are getting the angular acceleration of the engine is coming out to be 4 pi radian per second square. Now you want to find the number of revolutions. So for that you will be firstly finding the angular displacement, because you know, if I want to complete one revolution, then here the angular displacement, linear displacement will be equals to 2 pi r if I take r as the radius. That will be the linear displacement, and if I want to find angular displacement, then I have to divide by the angle 2 pi, because theta, you know, it is equals to L upon r. So this knowledge is your previous knowledge, so you can always find the value. So you have to find the angular displacement theta, which is given by omega naught t plus 1 by 2 alpha t square. Omega naught you have already calculated 40 pi. Time is given 16. 1 by 2 as it is. Alpha you have calculated 4 pi. T is given 16 square. Then you can put the values and you are getting this value 1152 pi radian. This is theta. And number of revolutions you can get simply by dividing this value by 2 pi. And we are getting the answer 576. Today you keep things up to this, and thank you everyone.